Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. Today's guest is fellow islander and someone I've been waiting to get on for a while. Jamie Blair started brewing honeybee tonics in his utility room. No investment, no plan, just a guy with an idea and the guts to back himself. He now runs two cafes here on the island, mentors cafe founders and hosts the Offline Club, a space where people can put down their phones and have the kind of honest conversations that most of us are avoiding. In a world screaming at us to be busier and more connected, Jamie is quietly doing the opposite. And I think there's a lesson in that for everyone listening. Jamie, welcome to the next chapter.
Hi, Luke. Thanks for having me on today.
No worries, mate. Okay, so take me back before Roots. Where were you and what were you doing with your life back then?
Sure. So I think one of the most important things for me in my journey was kind of when we were at school, or when I was at school. I always had this kind of real like bug desire or like niggling point that I just didn't feel like that kind of was for me. So that was out throughout like GCSE and A level and also university. I went there and studied law, but it was only kind of like when I was studying a module, a landlord module, that the pain of that particular topic was kind of like too much for me. And it just was something that stuck with me to this day. And it was a real motivator for me to really try and find a track that I wanted to follow, because I knew deep down that a career in law just wasn't for me.
Oh, okay. So how old were you when you actually threw yourself into entrepreneurship? Was it long after you finished uni or?
Yeah, so effectively straight after university, I came back. I didn't really know where I was going, what I was going to do. I obviously kind of had my parents that maybe had this expectation that I was going to go and be a lawyer. But as I said before, deep down, I knew that I wasn't going to go and be a lawyer. So came back. I worked in hospitality on the Isle of Man, at at a cocktail bar called Bath and Bottle, and then also one of their restaurants, 14 North. And yeah, it was there. I got a real buzz for kind of getting to know customers. I guess like the kind of the high pace of it all, and kind of like juggling several different things at once, and just seemed to suit, I guess, my chaotic personality. So it was from there I started making soft drinks in the bar, Bath and Bottle, to kind of go with cocktails. And so we made like a lemonade, a ginger beer, and yeah, like those guys were really supportive of kind of they allowed me to create kind of different cocktails and different syrups and that sort of thing. That really gave me that kind of entrepreneurial taste. So from there, I started to bottle it up at my parents' house on a hob, like a gas hob. Used to pasteurize it over a stove, basically, and then seal it, and then we'd go out and sell it to different kind of eateries and cafes around the island. And we just slowly grew from there. We ended up having a little factory in Tremode on the island. And then eventually we started bottling it in the UK with our recipe. And we started to basically, try to get into the English market. But a few things happened along the way with different kind of operational things, which made it quite tricky to move forward. And so I can't remember what year it was, but we kind of came to an agreement that we would kind of go on our separate ways. We'd started to build and receive investment into the business, but there were a few sticking points with investors, which made it quite difficult to move forward. And yeah, we kind of stopped at that point. But I knew deep down that wasn't the end of Roots for me. I don't know what it was, but I always had a little kind of inkling that it was going to stick with me. And I guess like 10 years later now, we have a different iteration of Roots at the moment, and we're still going. So I guess, it just goes to show, like, you only truly fail if you give up on your dreams.
So many of us have ideas and dreams, like you just said, but very few really they start. You know, taking that first step is so hard.
Yeah.
What made you take the first step and go for it, do you think?
It was the pain, I think. It was the pain. I didn't want to live a life where I just couldn't accept going and being a lawyer was going to be fulfilling enough for me as a person. Like, it just didn't suit me. It didn't suit my personality. Um, Obviously, I know lots of lawyers and stuff, and that career obviously suits them really well. But I just knew at that age that I couldn't do that for the rest of my life.
What did your parents and your uni buddies, etc., what did they say when you made that decision not to go down that route?
Phew, actually, it's a good question. And I've never really spoken to my parents about it. I've always just been quite like stubborn um, in kind of my direction in life. And I guess as I built more momentum and confidence in what I was doing, I kind of knew that this was, the path for me. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's probably an interesting little point you made there. Maybe it's worthwhile me visiting that topic with my parents sometime soon to see what their initial thoughts were when I came back from university. Decided I wasn't going to go and be a lawyer and instead work in hospitality after spending 3-4 years at university.
Hmm. Was there ever a moment, like genuinely looking back, you said it's been 10 years
Mm,
since this dream sort of started, really, where you thought, I mean, obviously there's been many times, I'm sure, where you thought that this wasn't going to work.
mm.
What has kept you going? You've already mentioned failure and feedback, but what has kept you going throughout those 10 years, do you think?
Yeah, I think I think deep down I know that we've only got one shot at this. And the older I get, the more that kind of burns for me. And I don't know, I've always been someone that'll find a way. Like, I like to kind of um, work in a sense that I'll try and move quickly and then adjust based on like feedback and try and move that way. So again, like for me, that's always, like, I don't think there's a possibility of failure if that's how you operate, if that's how you work, if that's what your mindset is, because you're constantly looking to move forward. You're not afraid to make mistakes or to fail. So yeah, there's only one way, and that's to make it work, to make it happen.
You like a challenge?
I love a challenge, to be honest. Yeah, I certainly don't want to have. I'm not like, I don't like to kind of have a lot of structure in my life, although it probably would help me quite a lot. But there's things that we're working on at the moment. I have got better at kind of like focusing on one thing and then moving on to the other thing. Trying to simplify like tasks a lot more, which obviously helps with momentum. I think momentum's a big thing. If you can get some quick momentum, then you grow in confidence in like your execution. Because obviously, we've all got ideas, but actually, like, having that confidence to try and execute is not always straightforward. It's not always easy. Um,
What does the Isle of Man mean to you then? And did it shape you as a person and as a business owner and a builder?
yeah, I think the Isle of Man is an incredible place. Like, I think it's stunning. It's beautiful. It has so much potential. So much potential. And yeah, I think it's that kind of, there's an element of that inspires me, because I want to kind of showcase that to the world. And that's kind of like what I'm trying to work on at the moment. Is kind of trying to, yeah, package something together that we could go out into like the British market and try and like kind of demonstrate what a beautiful place we have, and potentially bring people to the island to try and experience some of that like natural beauty that we have here, and that kind of like just different lifestyle that just so many people crave.
I've been living here for 2 years now, and I absolutely love the place. But whenever you mention the Isle of Man well, I'm from Bristol in the southwest of England.
Yeah,
A lot of I've mentioned it on here before. A lot of people think that I live in the Isle of Wight. They don't even know where
yeah,
the Isle
you always get that. I
they
always get that as well.
they don't even know where the Isle of Man is. And And so many people just associate it with fast bikes and the TT, but it really does have so much more to offer.
So much more to offer. Yeah, there's so much potential. And hopefully we can tap into that over the next couple of years, because, if you haven't been, I genuinely believe that you're missing out massively, because it's so accessible from the mainland. It's accessible when you get here as well, to visit like different areas around the island. There's actually like really good hospitality here as well, which, again, I think people need to experience. I think the community here is incredible. I think, you know, like for us, it's what we put at the forefront of kind of what we do with the cafes. We're trying to build a brand as such, with community at the forefront of everything we do, so that, people really feel kind of like at home, welcomed, and a part of what we're doing, and trying to grow. So hopefully with that experience that we have, we can kind of try and reach out to that wider audience, whether it's the UK or even further afield, and bring people to the island, and almost be a host and showcase this incredible island to other people from different communities.
Roots isn't just a cafe, as you just explained. It feels like it stands for a lot more. What were you like when you started? What were you actually trying to build, or has it evolved?
Yeah, I mean, I've always, as I said before earlier in the podcast, I always loved to get to know like customers wherever I worked. So that was like the real kind of first piece of the puzzle for me. It was like the one thing that I really felt alive from was, customers. Like, if I was in the restaurant serving at 40 North, they'd come one TT, they'd come back the next TT, to kind of see if, to hopefully still be served by me, because I'd like to think I gave them a good experience. Like, we built a friendship. Um, I think that friendship for me is the important word. I try to kind of build friendships through the brands that we are building, rather than customers. I'm always super conscious about trying to learn people's names as soon as they kind of walk through the door. Usually I'm getting a little bit older now, so it takes me 2 or 3 times to remember, and like, yeah, just remember their coffee order, so that I can, try and have it ready as soon as possible. If I see them from a distance coming, then I try and like get it ready for whenever they walk through the door, that sort of thing. Um, I've kind of lost my train of thought with the question now. So
Uh, I just asked what you were trying to build in the beginning, and has the vision evolved and changed?
yeah,
Because Roots seems like just so much more than just a cafe.
yeah. So yeah, for me, like, obviously I talked about that like community aspect to it. That's always been really important for me personally. I don't know why. I've always had a passion for coffee. I think that also started when I was at university. So that's a piece of the jigsaw there. Yeah, and I think, I don't know, like, we get kind of lost in the way of like building business sometimes. Like, for me, I'm trying to build a brand. So what that means is, something that people can connect to. So it's something maybe a bit deeper than a brand, like, and that's, what really makes us unique, and what makes us stand out, is that we focus on trying to build a brand rather than a business. And, part of that brand is community, getting to know customers, having different communities involved in the cafes. So sea swims, run clubs, meet for club runs with cycling. We're doing kind of like loads of collaborations at the moment with all different kind of communities across the island. So yeah, I think, that hopefully answers that question.
Is there anything that stands out that you got badly wrong early on and that you do completely different now?
It's a really interesting question, because my mindset on this, I think, has changed recently. Because actually, what I would encourage is to try and make as many mistakes as possible, because that is where you'll really learn about your business and about yourself as well. I think our mindset and the culture around failure, from what I've learned, like at school, etc., at university, obviously you're graded and you need to get a certain grade, otherwise it's seen as a failure. But for me, I'm much more in the mindset now, whereas I'm not afraid to fail. Like I want to fail, and if and when I'm failing, I feel like I'm a lot more kind of in tune and on the right track as to where we're going. So if I'm not failing, I'm always a bit worried nowadays.
Yeah, you become, you get into autopilot and you start
Yeah,
coasting,
we've
um,
had
and you're not moving forward and you're not growing.
yeah, and we've had huge hurdles over the past 3 years. One of our shops was kind of damaged. Um, Equipment was damaged, which set us back quite a kind of a long period of time before we kind of got that sorted. Obviously, that was quite a process as well to kind of get to the bottom of that. We've obviously had kind of operational challenges. I've tried to change how the business operates. It's not worked very well. We've then had to go back to old ways. We've obviously been always trying to like find our niche, like with our products as well, like in terms of our offering and stuff like that. And that takes time and a lot of energy and effort, and it can really make you question like your choices sometimes. But now, like as I said before, I'm really not afraid. Like if I have an idea, to give it a go, get the feedback, because it's priceless at the end of the day. Like you can't pay for that kind of knowledge that you get from making those errors. So yeah, like for me, I don't want it to be plain sailing. I want there to be bumps in the road. I want there to be challenges. And I take encouragement when I start to see things kind of not going as planned, I guess. But that's life as well, Like I think there's no perfect life, right? So that's the same with any challenges that you're facing in business. If you think you're gonna have a straightforward road, then I guess maybe maybe it's you're in the wrong.
Yeah, it's all about the journey, not the destination.
Exactly.
It sounds so cliche and corny, I know, but it is so true. I think so many people they they it's like the goalposts are always moving in life, aren't they? Whether that's in
Yeah.
business, whether it's in, it can be in so many different things.
The
But
big thing for me as well that I learned was, we've faced some big challenges, like, and I've obviously questioned, like, oh, naturally, because I'm a human, like, okay, maybe this challenge is like a little bit beyond me or whatever. But you know, the reason why I've got through it is because people have stepped up and into my life at the right moments, and that is actually the beautiful thing about when you're like going through hardship and like you're facing, I guess, your demons, and you're facing all the challenges. People start to appear in your life to help support you and like pull you through, and help you get through the other side. And the thing is, you are going to get through. It might feel like it's a very long dark tunnel, but you will get through, like one step at a time. And you'll get there. And sometimes, it feels like literally the world's caving in on you. But just as that feels quite painful and dramatic. Like once you get through to the other side as well, that joy and elation like is incredible. And the other thing I just want to kind of point out there as well is like when you do get to the other side and like things are starting to like swing in the right direction for you, the kind of when things are coming together, that joy and elation you get from seeing that would be, I think, is like 10 times more powerful, because you've gone through the stormiest of seas to get there, and it feels so much more rewarding. I certainly wouldn't want to go A to B in a straight line.
everyone wants the view, but they don't want the climb.
Exactly
Yeah, I
that.
think it's a great, and I think it's a great way of looking at it. It is so true. But you only really appreciate the views when you go through through those tough points, right?
Reflecting back on like the hard parts of the journey and like the bumpy moments, like, and it kind of, yeah, it's incredible elation that you get from reflecting on that once you've like really got through those challenges and got to the other side. Like, yeah, it's just such an incredible feeling.
You mentor people now to open their own cafes in 90 days.
Yeah.
What's the biggest mindset shift most people need to hear before they're ready to build anything? You
Yeah.
probably mentioned a few already,
Yeah,
Jamie.
I think for me it's like be prepared for the storms because I think as well in cafes there's so many spinning plates, and for me it's also like working out how does your personality suit like your operation as well. It's like for me I've realized that I just quite like small cafes where I can get to know customers. I can kind of uh, have time to make time for customers and that sort of thing. That really suits me and my personality. Obviously, that can be different for everyone. So I think it's just like as well understanding what kind of you want, but also it's like knowing that if you try something, like you can, make changes and adapt it and kind of try and find where you want to be with your cafe and what you want to do with that. So yeah, I think it's kind of like understanding yourself a little bit as to what you want. Um, I guess in a lifestyle, do you want to like scale it to, I don't know, like hundreds of cafes, franchise it or whatever, or do you want to just kind of build a bit more of a community around your cafes, and have a bit more of a lifestyle around it as well?
Do you think everyone's cut out to be a business owner?
That's a great question. I don't think so, actually. No, I think some people suit, as I said before, like a bit of structure. Some people are a lot more academic, and a career a career that has steps might suit them and their personality. I've always been a bit of a menace, like even in school and stuff. So I think maybe like that lends itself to kind of like that entrepreneurial kind of mindset. Bit of chaotic, that sort of thing. Um, so yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I think people. Yeah,
I think if you're a business owner, you've got to be willing to take risks as well, haven't you? And a
yeah.
lot of people aren't cut out for that.
No, 100%. Like risk is like, I don't know. Like for me, it's second nature, right? But yeah, for some people, they really weigh it up and look at all the different risk and reward, I guess. And I like to kind of execute as quickly as possible, especially if I've got like something I'm excited about. Because I want to carry that momentum, and I don't want to lose that momentum. So yeah, maybe some people would be a bit more, as I said, like before weighing up the risks and before pulling the trigger, I try and pull the trigger and then adapt along the way.
Tell me more about the offline club. I've seen it on your website. Where
Yeah,
did the idea come from, and what problem are you trying to solve?
yeah, I think like for that, for the offline club, well, I mean, I was massively encouraged when I kind of posted something. I think I can't even remember what it was, but it was like just talking about um like the chronic use of like using my phone all the time. Like every moment that I get, like I was reaching for my phone, and yeah, like I could just feel my brain like swelling all the time and like getting irritated and stuff like that. And I just was like, oh, this is actually like really quite hard to stop and like put my phone down and like leave it when I've got a bit of free time. So, I mean, we've got loads of really fun, exciting plans, hopefully, which will include in kind of like the wider Roots brand with this over the next few years. But yeah, it was just about bringing people together, slowing people down. For me, what I was struggling with as well was having some dedicated time to plan. Um, so kind of one of the elements was with the offline club was like an hour of just planning. So I kind of guided people through like um, yeah, a section where people would kind of plan the next 60 days, 90 days, with a little bit of structure in there, trying to identify, where their weaknesses were or where they wanted to focus more on and less on sort of thing. And then after that, we went for a little like a walk around the glen, kind of chatted about different aspects of like of what was brought to light in that planning session. And then we came back and we did a little bit of like breath work and Pilates, to really try and like slow people down and I guess like reset the nervous system as well. And then after that, we did like a brunch buffet, lots of like roots products, dates and peanut butter, protein bars, crumbles, all the stuff that you see in the cafes. And then that was like a 4 hour kind of block, and it like the demand for it was insane, to be honest. We've got a bit of a waiting list, email waiting list, kind of for the next one. I was planning on maybe doing it once a month, but my ideas have kind of taken me somewhere else a little bit at the moment. I've parked it for now because I want to try and encompass some other different aspects into like what we're doing at the moment. But as I said before, I'm trying to work more linearly, complete a task, execute it, then move on to the next phase or the next part of roots and the growth of roots, and then eventually introduce it all as kind of like my vision is like the Isle of Man could almost be like this offline island, not offline per se, but metaphorically almost. It's like we almost position ourselves as this like retreat slash wellness slash come to the island if you want to kind of get away from the hustle and bustle of the city life, and have 3 days switching off with like an itinerary slash or like a whole week, with a team of executives of like from your department or whatever, or even you just want a little break, which is all kind of focused around like wellness, eating well, recovery, nervous system, all those sort of things.
It sounds amazing. I think I'm definitely going to have to join that wait list.
Yeah.
You describe it as a space for high functioning people who carry weight. What kind of weight are you talking about?
It can be anything really, like, I mean, so part of like my challenges over the past few years, like I've had some health issues with like chronic eczema, which I was covered top to toe in eczema. I like my forehead, like if I did that, it would just be so dry. And, I felt like that, I don't know what, like, I don't know what the kind of trigger to that was. And I also don't know what the exact kind of unraveling of that was, because now, as you can see, my skin's quite good now. Um, and I don't suffer, like obviously like every now and then, especially in the heat, it gets a little bit irritated, but I don't suffer as much now. I was like stuck in this cycle of like anxiety and depression as well, whilst trying to like run the cafes, and have like a small team of people as well. Like, and I was turning up every day, like, and the anxiety and the depression and the kind of pain that I was carrying was chronic as well. And like this has all kind of funneled me into, as I said, like putting these pieces of the jigsaw down, and really kind of like starting to get that like clear vision and clear goal. But yeah, just going back, I guess like, there's lots of people that are just kind of like on full throttle, like all the time. And I think, it is just not healthy, like for your nervous system to be absolutely pinging all the time. So like it's come from my pain, and my pains of like, and my challenges of running of just life, I guess, as becoming an adult, like as I get older, and just creating a space and like trying to almost be an example of like, you can still like have success, achieve your goals, um, you know, hit your targets, but it doesn't always have to be like full throttle. And also, I think like if you are full throttle, then the thing that I've learned as well is to start recognizing when I've hit a target and to reward myself, at the end of the week as well. I don't know what the psychology is around that, but when I started doing these things, that is when my eczema started to like clear up, and that like anxiety and depression started to really disperse.
There's so many people listening to this podcast that are numbing out, like you said, or distracting themselves, whether that's with alcohol, with screens, with work, just to avoid that weight that we just mentioned, Jamie. Does
Yeah.
that resonate with what you see in the offline club?
Yeah, definitely. People, like school teachers, business owners, doctors, it's like, it's incredible really, because you kind of feel a bit like under like qualified to be hosting a space like this for, those sort of people. But they just want the experience. They want the time to like block it out. And they don't want to like have to think about anything. They want to go through a process. They want to be nourished. They want a bit of like connection with other humans, like community and conversation. Yeah, and they want to try and like reflect as well, and just have that time to be human. Because sometimes I think, you get so busy you forget that you're a human sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes we just need that connection.
Yeah.
And living in a digital world, especially with AI, we're becoming. So, I mean, social media was meant to connect us all, but it's actually disconnecting us all, I think.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I think, I think it's I think there's obviously loads of positives to it, but it's hard to I try and like social media, for example, Instagram, I try and use it to like inspire and not consume now, because as I said, like in a recent post, I put it was about kind of one life, and my kind of idea behind Instagram now is to try and like encourage people to live an inspired life, and look back on what they've done when they're a little bit older and go, yeah, I was happy with that. Like, I ticked all the boxes. I did what I needed to do. Yeah. So that, that's kind of, I try and use it as a tool rather than something to consume now. Because I mean, I used to consume it. Like, I don't even know what like some of my data around social media and stuff would be, and phone use and that sort of thing. I've definitely got a lot better now with that. And that's just breaking the habit as well, because it does become a habit at the end of the day.
Yeah, it can become, well, it's the same as anything in life, I think. It's all about balance.
Yeah,
And you can obviously overconsume, but it gets such a bad rap, social media. But like you said, you
yeah,
can use it for inspiration, and
mm,
there can be so many. You know, if you only follow inspirational pages or whatever, then it
yeah.
can be a really really good thing.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, that's kind of like how I've tried to tailor my own personal Instagram as well, to try and get rid of like, don't know, stuff that is not useful whatsoever, and try to, like really focus on stuff that's like lifting me up and encouraging me, yeah, to live the life that I want to live. So,
There's a version of entrepreneurship and business owners that look very successful on the outside, but they feel hollow on the inside.
mm,
Have you ever been close to that? I mean, does that resonate with you?
I think there's certainly a period of my life where I was like, oh, yeah, I think it's like when we had the free cafes. What else were we doing? We were doing some other bits and pieces at that point, and I didn't have any direction, didn't have any goal, didn't have any vision. I just thought that I was going to keep building cafes. But like deep down, again, I knew that I didn't want to just run cafes. Like for me, like the more I do, the less connected I'm going to be with like our customers. Um, and that was obviously like, I explained before, we had a bit of a disaster with our third cafe, like operationally and mechanically. But I truly believe that was a bit of a blessing in disguise for me to take that moment to maybe take a few steps back to work out like how we were going to go forward. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think, um, that's part of that journey and part of that priceless experience of being an entrepreneur, or like building a career, for example. I think again, it's not like we kind of have this culture in the society where we're like, we always have to be moving forward to be successful. But actually, yeah, as I said, I think sometimes it's wise to take some steps back, reflect on where you're at, and recharge, and then send it again.
Sometimes you need to slow down to speed up.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And like I think it's trying to be in tune with yourself as well, and like understand understand what you want, but like I think you only start to really understand what you want through your errors and through what we may determine as a failure or as something that isn't successful. I guess like you kind of like reflect on it and go, maybe wasted a bit of time on something here that doesn't set me alight, doesn't kind of bang the drum of like the example of a human that I want to be in the world. So you go, right, okay, well, we're not going to roll with that anymore. We're going to knock that on the head, and we're going to kind of maybe try this little thing that I've had a little thought about, or maybe I've journaled about, or something along those lines. Yeah, and that's like the kind of the continuing process of the journey, I guess.
Before we hit record earlier, you mentioned it's about how important it is for you to have a vision.
Yeah,
I would call it a North Star.
yeah.
So tell me more about that. Why do you think it's so important to have a clear vision?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting one. I've actually had a few conversations around this before because I think, almost corporately, there's this idea that we need to have a goal and a vision, and it can almost be like forced and maybe something that you don't necessarily truly connect with. But it's like I've experienced this before. Like, to be honest, for the past 9 years, it's something that I've sat down and wrote goals and had a vision and stuff, and it's kind of like floundered, or it's fizzled away, and that's because I like haven't truly been connected with it. Well, it was only a few weeks ago. We pulled the trigger on kind of the next phase of what we're doing with Roots, and it was just one of those moments that you hear those stories where it was like it just dropped into me, and I was like, okay, like I've got a much clearer goal and vision now. Like I reflected in that on that moment on like something that I'd previously had like a desire to do. And I was like, I just need to execute this piece of the puzzle, which I'm like nearly executed. And then there's literally one more piece of the puzzle here. And then I have the whole kind of, vision that I've had before. And it was just in that moment that I was just like it just felt real. It felt tangible. And it felt like there was an element of like, I don't know, like connection with what I was doing. And it just became very apparent that I could do it. And I was like, I'm going to do this now. Like in that moment, I got my like book out, and because I was obviously buzzing, and started like writing down like just kind of everything I could. And then I just got this like really, yeah, I kind of just pieced the puzzle together after that. And I was like, okay, well, this is what we're going to do now. And this is now like how we're going to kind of grow the brand. But as I said, like I've always had that along the way, but it's not being 100% clear. The vision's not been there. I've had goals and visions, but it just didn't feel right. But it was just in that moment, it all just came together, and like I just feel like I know which direction we're going in now, and I know exactly how we're going. Well, I don't know exactly how we're going to get there, but I know the pieces that we need to kind of put in place in order to get there. And it was, yeah. I mean, for me, like that was almost the light at the end of the tunnel. Like it was almost like not the checkered flag, but it was like the pendulum had swung after maybe 3 or 4 years of real challenges. And like that's not to say that we're not going to face challenges again, over the next few years and through the next phases or whatever. But it just was like a defining moment for me where I was like, okay, I feel like we've now got through that phase. We can see light at the end of the tunnel. We know where we're going now. And we've got to just send it again, like, and there's almost like a new layer of confidence that's kind of like settled into me, and there's a new level of desire and a new level of like delusion. And yeah, I just know that that's where we're going. I know that's what we're going to achieve, and I know nothing's going to stop me.
Yeah. Yeah, I can hear the passion in your voice when you're talking about it. The do you put that down to intuition as well? Do you
I,
think
yeah, I
you
think
get that feeling?
there must be an element of intuition in it, because it, as I said, like I've had like these different elements that have been very similar to kind of what I've got written down on my whiteboard here. But it was just something in that moment where I just pulled the trigger on something, and it just was like, boom, it just became very clear, very apparent. The vision was there, the goal was there, and I was like, this new wave of confidence was there, and I was like, I know where we're going. So I don't know that it's hard to kind of like explain with words. Um, exactly, kind of that feeling. But I think one thing that also like really really stands out for me is like along the way, I have tried to shake my brand off and be like, I've thought about kind of 10 years down the line going, do you know what, like I'm gonna just go and be a lawyer. That would be a much more structured thing for me to do. But I've never been able to shake it off. There's been other like cases of like different ideas or like trying to build other little side hustles and stuff along the way, but I've never really kind of built momentum. But there's just something about what I'm doing, whether that's like intuitionally or, my life purpose, or that I just can't shake off. I just can't get rid of it. And like, as I said, like even through some of the biggest challenges, like I've started to kind of find my people in life. I've tried to shake off roots, but it just keeps sticking. I've now got like this clear vision and goal. We've had like some unbelievable challenges, like all stacking up, like one after the other. And here we are today, still cracking on, and still kind of more inspired than ever. To kind of smash my goals.
The hunger's still there, well and true. So anybody listening to this then, Jamie, and they're stuck in their 9 to 5 job and they're dreaming about starting a business, they've got that gut feeling that, they've got ideas running around in their head. What would you say to them? I mean, what would be the first step moving forward?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think like if you can identify that it's not just kind of a nice idea. It's something, maybe you thought about for a few years now. I think, obviously there's an element of like understanding kind of how you operate as a person. Maybe that structure of like 9 to 5, building a career. Because I think as well, there's opportunity in that. Maybe people don't have the confidence, to, try and step forward and just be bold in their career, maybe and try and like, take it to that next level. I think we're all like capable once we have that fire in our belly to accomplish kind of like all our goals. But yeah, I think it's really identifying whether um that kind of like passion and that fire for that idea is kind of something that's going to cling on to you, or whether it is just maybe a bit of a flash in the pan. But that's what I mean, like a flash in the pan as well. Like I've had loads of flashes in the pan, but there's something just different about like roots and my vision for roots and what I'm doing. Like it's part of my personality. It's part of, my identity. It's part of my lifestyle. I think, if it's something like that, if it's a burning desire like that, then I think, you're definitely onto something there, and it's something that you can certainly build and, um, take a lot of courage from, even in those dark days. Um, yeah, I think, yeah, it's about really digging deep and working out whether that's as I said before, flash in the pan, or whether it's, a burning desire to take it on. Because if it is a burning desire, you're gonna do it no matter what. You know what I mean? So no challenge will be big enough to kind of take you down.
If it's there and you've been thinking about it for a few years, then yeah, obviously you need to get a structure in place to make it happen.
Yeah, exactly.
It's turning that dream into a reality, isn't it? It's so hard, but you're only ever going to do it by taking the action.
Yeah, exactly. And the reality is as well, like you could do it on the side, Do you know what I mean? Do it on the side of your 9 to 5 job. You could, build the small kind of little steps in place and really try and lay the foundation down before kind of pulling that trigger fully, going, fully into, full time on your project, so to speak.
So if the closest people to you, Jamie, said, if they were asked, what does Jamie stand for? What would you want them to say?
I don't know, deluded community. And I think just like driven, focused in many respects as well. And I think there's like one word that, you know, just trying to think of. I think oh, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for. Nothing's gonna be able to take me down, I don't think, until I kind of achieve what I want to achieve.
Very ambitious.
Yeah, exactly.
If, if you could go back then and speak to your younger self back then when you were doing your law degree back in university, what would you tell that a younger version, Jamie?
Uh, to be honest, like someone was asking me about this the other day. I'd certainly encourage people to not be afraid of failing, or kind of facing adversity head on as well, like and really getting stuck into those challenges. I think, the sooner you can learn, uh, adapt and adjust, where adversity kind of crops up, then I think, it's a skill that I think is essential in life. And, I think it's that for me is if you can deal with adversity and the challenges, then, I think you're going to go pretty far in life.
What does the next chapter look like for you then, Jamie? And where can people find you? I'll put your website links and stuff in the
Yeah.
show notes anyway.
So you can obviously find me at Jamie_Roots. Then the cafes are roots.im. And then we've got rootshq.co.uk is our website. But yeah, like for me, it's kind of like now trying to not move away from the cafes, but we want to try and kind of build a bit more of an experience around the brand, and that's what I'm really excited for. So we currently have like a sauna on the way for one of our cafes, and yeah, I'm looking forward to launching that because that's something that we've obviously done from day one is have the kind of sea dipping community around that. And so that's now obviously that comes hand in hand with that. So, for us, we've got like our kind of healthy eating, and we're going to try and tailor that cafe a little bit more towards the sauna. And yeah, do like protein shakes, and we make these incredible protein bars, homemade protein bars. So yeah, I really want to kind of like tailor that towards that. And thereafter, we're looking to potentially do some sort of like B&B. And then the big picture would be then to kind of bring it all onto one site as like a bit of a wellness retreat with accommodation, like a bit of a running track, like a bit of a lake, some saunas, some cabins where you can be offline. And then I think for me, the big picture then would be to take that blueprint somewhere else and try and execute it somewhere else in the world.
It's a hell of a vision. It really is. Thank you so much for coming on today, Jamie. It's been a great conversation, and it's been great finally getting to meet you, mate. Obviously, I've been into the cafe quite a few times here in Pill,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's got that real sense of community, I think, and that personal touch, which makes it very, very different to other cafes. I think it's a brilliant thing that you're doing, mate, and it's really, really inspiring. And I think it's a brilliant example of what is possible when you choose to show up.
Yeah, thank you very much. No, I think it's exciting. Yeah, it's exciting because I think like, along the way, there's certainly been times where I've been like, oh, what am I doing? Like, I'm lost. I've not had that vision. I've not had that goal. But no, I think, it's an example of, I think it's an example of like, I was doing stuff that I love, but that also doesn't necessarily mean that you kind of have your stuff together. It's like, still along that way and that journey, there's ups and downs, and there's moments that are going to define you, and like you're going to develop as a person, and your personality and your character is going to kind of change. And as I said, like your goal and your vision is going to change along the way. But yeah, you just gotta kind of keep going.
keep going, and never give up, but only ever pivot on the way.
That's it. That's it. Because you only really fail if,
Brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on, Jamie. I've really appreciated your time.
thanks, Luke. Thank you very much for your time as well.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you.